Who is the stranger that you have only seen / met once in your life that you still think about time to time? When I was a kid, I flew by myself for the first time. At the airport, when I was about to check in, I spotted an elderly lady looking at me deeply. At first I thought I accidentally hit her or something, so I asked if she needed anything. She nodded. Didn't give it much importance, so I just checked in and headed to my plane. Later, already on the plane, I see the very same lady looking for her seat. Of course I helped her and asked her what number her seat was. She handed me her ticket. B37. I'll never forget it because I was the C37. She sat right next to me. I was scared. I was a kid and I wasn't used to coincidences. Anyway, long flight. When we arrived and were waiting for the plane to land for us to head out, she finally says, "You know, you really look like my daughter. I even thought you were her. But she passed away 5 years ago. Silly me. Here, this is her with my grandkids." She handed me her phone with a zoomed in picture. I was paralyzed when I saw her. She looked exactly like me, but she was 28 and I was 10. I couldn't even talk. Now that I'm older, every time I look in the mirror for my birthday, I remember that lady in the picture. I'm a living photo of her daughter. Every year that goes by is a year that I look more like that woman in the picture. When I turn 28, I hope this memory will finally scare me less. Weird and cool altogether. When I was 10, I moved to a new school. Right around the same time, another girl, also 10, started there too. Never met before, didn't know each other's families, nothing we could connect. She was named what my mother was originally going to name me, which was weird. We were identical. Height, weight, glasses, eyes, built, voice, you name it. We were so identical that not only did the teachers get us confused, but our mothers couldn't tell us apart at first glance. My mother went to the school one day, saw me, and started talking about something or other. Later she talked to me again, but I had no idea what she was talking about. Turns out she had talked to the other girl without knowing it wasn't her daughter. We were friends instantly. It was kinda fun after the creepiness wore off. Fun twist, she and her family ended up moving down the street 6 years later without knowing where we had moved to. You reminded me of my person. In the summer of 2014, my brother, 24, lost his life to leukemia. Obviously it was devastating, but he was more like my firstborn child than my brother. I was 13 when he was born, and I loved him without end. My parents had it easy. I even got up with him at night. My brother and my son had an incredible bond. Even though my son wasn't even 1 when my brother went off to college, they still managed to create something pretty awesome. My son's nickname, that he loves, was given to him by my brother. My son was 5 when my brother passed away, and my daughter was 10. One of my biggest fears was that my kids would forget him. Fall. The next year, my kids and I are at a family scouting event. As soon as we walked up to the archery area, I spotted my brother's 17-year-old look-alike. Instantly I was giddy and wanted to hug this stranger. His mannerisms were exactly the same and even the way he spoke was similar. I had been struggling with the loss of my brother, and in that moment I felt absolute joy. While my daughter was putting away her equipment, my son, 6, says, "Mom, that guy right there reminds me of Uncle Em." It made me smile, because it felt like he was right here with us. I was fighting back happy sobs. My little boy absolutely remembered his uncle. A few moments later, as we were walking away, my daughter says, "Mom, everything about that guy was Uncle Em. It was so weird but cool too." When I was fresh out of college, I drove over 2 hours away for a job interview and got into a car accident like a block away from the building. My car was completely totaled. A woman who was stopped at the stop sign near my accident pulled over and got out to make sure I was okay. I was completely fine physically, but have very bad anxiety and immediately had a panic attack. I was sobbing and couldn't catch my breath, and this complete stranger sat with me the entire time telling me to breathe and just being so caring and supportive. She waited with me for the police to come. She helped me talk them through what happened. She called my mom for me. She even called the office I was on my way to, so she could let them know about the accident and that I would call them to reschedule my interview. As if that wasn't enough, once she found out that I was that far away from home and it was going to take my mom 2 hours to get to me, she cancelled her meeting that she was already late to so she could drive me halfway. She did not think it was a big deal whatsoever. She just stepped up to the plate to help without question. I would have been completely alone and lost without her that day. She was an angel, honestly. I lost her business card between all the paperwork from the accident, and I've been kicking myself over it for the last 5 years. All I want is to call her and tell her how thankful I am and that I've kept her in my thoughts ever since. Roxanne, if you're out there, thank you so much. And please, for the love of God, send me your last name so I can send you some flowers. I was doing last minute Father's Day shopping with my son for my husband. There was a young lady in the card section crying, full on, broken hearted, ugly crying. I looked at her and thought back, quote, poor thing, I hope she's okay. We finished our shopping, line up to check out, and she was still there. She's pick up a card, look at it, burst into fresh tears, put it back, then compose herself, and lose it all over again. By now my heart was breaking for her, so I sent my son off to grab a box of chocolates. We bought our stuff and waited just outside for her. When she came out, I grabbed the chocks, approached her and said back, quote, I don't know what's going on and it's none of my business, but I got these for you. I promise things will get better. She burst into tears, grabbed me in a hug, and said back, quote, my dad died 2 days ago. Anyway, longish story short, we sat down and she told me about her dad and how she wanted to put a Father's Day card in his coffin with the present she'd gotten him and all the things people need to say when someone they love dies suddenly. We went our separate ways when she saw how late it was, and honestly, to this day I don't know if I'd recognize her, even if I bumped into her again. But I've always wondered how she made it through her first Father's Day without her dad and how she's doing now. I haven't told anyone but my husband this story before, and I'm only sharing it now on the random chance she reads it and remembers us and I can find out how she's doing. When I was 10, I went to a supermarket in my taekwondo uniform. A black man asked me to teach him how to properly kick in the middle of the store in front of everyone. Never seen him since. This is such a baller, cool dad move. I love it. I imagine him fighting for his life in typical action movie situation and silently saying to himself, thanks kiddo.